My wife insists on force-feeding me 100 raw oysters every night. At first, she was overjoyed. But gradually, she couldn't take it anymore, and every night she wouldn't come home, leaving me to sleep alone. Until her best friend came to stay at our house, and how did she just— They say that once a woman passes 30, she becomes like a wolf or a tiger, and my wife, Lin Xiaoman, is even more so. Come on, hubby, just one more. Xiaoman's soft, tender hands rested on my shoulder. She picked up a plump oyster with chopsticks, dipped it in wasabi soy sauce, and brought it to my mouth. Today, she was wearing a wine-red silk nightgown with a v-neck that dipped just right. Her hair still carried the steam from her shower, giving off a subtle jasmine scent under the warm yellow restaurant light. Su Yuqing sniffed. What smells so good? She walked straight to the kitchen, then froze. So many oysters? I stood awkwardly behind her, unsure how to explain. Su Yuqing turned to look at me, a curious glint in her eyes. Xiaoman told me you were trying the oyster therapy recently, but isn't this a bit exaggerated? You know about it too? I asked in surprise. Of course, Su Yuqing laughed. I'm the one who recommended it to her. However, she pointed at the large plate of oysters. I said 2 or 3 times a week, and 2 or 3 per time would be enough. What's with the 100? I felt like I had been struck by lightning. So this was all due to a misunderstanding? Lin Xiaoman heard 100 instead of 2 or 3? Su Yuqing seemed to read something from my expression and suddenly burst into laughter. Oh my god! Did you really eat 100 every night? No wonder Xiaoman keeps saying she's tired and making excuses to work overtime lately. My face was burning. Su Yuqing laughed harder and harder, finally having to hold onto the counter to steady herself. Today she was wearing a loose white t-shirt and denim shorts. When she laughed, the hem of the t-shirt lifted slightly, revealing a section of her fair waistline. Sorry, I'm not laughing at you. She finally stopped, wiping tears from the corners of her eyes. It's just, this is too classic. Xiaoman is always so extreme in everything she does. I shrugged helplessly. Now you know what I've been through for the past week. Su Yuqing looked at the oysters, then at me, and suddenly winked. Don't waste them. I'll help you finish some. I'm hungry anyway. Before I could stop her, she picked one up, skillfully shucked it, and tipped it into her mouth. Mmm. So fresh. She squinted in satisfaction. Xiaoman always has a good eye for seafood. I watched her eat 3 more continuously, then suddenly remembered something and asked in horror. Wait, you know what effect oysters have, right? Su Yuqing's hand froze in midair, her face instantly changing color. You mean? Our eyes met, and an ominous premonition spread through the air. Su Yuqing's hand hung suspended, the juice from the oyster shell dripping onto the kitchen floor tiles with a faint pat-pat sound. Her expression shifted from the joy of eating to a kind of indescribable shock. Are you saying? Su Yuqing's voice suddenly became a little dry. These oysters are. I nodded awkwardly, watching her normally pale cheeks flush visibly. She was wearing a light orange eyeshadow today, which, paired with her suddenly reddened face, gave her an oddly delicate beauty. Xiaoman didn't tell you the exact quantity, but she must have mentioned the purpose? I asked cautiously. Su Yuqing put down the oyster shell, unconsciously wiping her fingers on the hem of her t-shirt. She only said you were trying oyster therapy. I thought it was just ordinary dietary supplementation. Her voice trailed off. How many did I eat? 4. I paused. Plus the one you tasted just now, 5. Su Yuqing's pupils slightly dilated. She turned to open the fridge, took out a bottle of ice water, and took a few gulps with her head tilted back. Water droplets slid down the corner of her mouth, over her neck, and disappeared deep into her collar. 5, it's not a big deal, right? She seemed to be asking me, and also reassuring herself. I gave a wry smile. The first time I only ate 3 and I swallowed the words, replacing them with a more euphemistic phrase. It was quite effective. Su Yuqing's throat worked, and she took another big sip of water. Under the kitchen light, I could see fine beads of sweat breaking out near her collarbone. She seemed to suddenly realize she was dressed too lightly and instinctively hugged her arms around herself. I'm going to unpack my luggage. She turned to leave but almost bumped into the kitchen door frame, her movements clearly flustered. I watched her fleeing back inside. My phone vibrated then, it was a message from Lin Xiaoman. Hubby, a temporary project came up, won't be back tonight. Remember to eat the oysters, love you. I stared at the note and suddenly realized that she was also running away. 7 consecutive days of oyster therapy was tormenting her as much as it was me. 7 years into our marriage, we were both a little tired. I stared at the screen, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. The first night my wife was away, I was alone in the house with her best friend. And we had both eaten oysters. This felt like the opening scene of some cheap comedy. I heard the sound of Su Yuqing dragging her suitcase outside the kitchen, followed by the opening and closing of the guest room door. I looked at the remaining plate of oysters and decisively dumped them into the trash can. Tonight was dangerous enough. I couldn't add any more variables. After cleaning up the kitchen, I poured a glass of ice water and walked into the living room. Su Yuqing had changed into home clothes, loose cotton pants and a high-neck t-shirt, clearly intended to cover her body as much as possible. She was sitting on the sofa looking at her phone. Hearing my footsteps, she glanced up quickly, then lowered her head again. "I'm sleeping in the guest room," she said, her voice a little tight. "I won't bother you." I sat on the single armchair, deliberately keeping my distance. "It's fine, just make yourself at home." The moment the words left my mouth, I felt it sounded wrong, so I quickly added, "I mean, don't be reserved." A silence fell. The evening news was playing on the TV, the serious voice of the anchor echoing in the living room, forming an absurd contrast with the subtle atmosphere. "Chen Mo," Su Yuqing suddenly spoke. "How long does the oyster effect last?" I considered my own experience. "Depends on the person's physique. Generally, it peaks in 3 to 4 hours and then slowly fades. Then, we just need to get through these few hours." I nodded, then realized she might not be looking in my direction, so I replied aloud, "Yes, drink more water and try to distract yourself." Su Yuqing picked up the water glass from the coffee table and took a sip. Under the soft living room light, the lines of her profile looked particularly gentle, her eyelashes casting a small shadow beneath her eyes. I forced myself to look away and picked up the remote control to switch to a sports channel. "Do you usually like watching basketball?" Su Yuqing asked, clearly trying hard to find a topic to distract herself. "Yeah, occasionally." I stared at the running players on the screen, trying to concentrate on the game rather than the woman next to me who was exuding a faint fragrance. "I remember you used to play a lot in college." Su Yuqing's voice carried a hint of nostalgia. "That's when Xiaoman was smitten with you. She said you looked especially handsome on the court." I smiled. "She'd probably only say I'm covered in sweat now." Another silence. I felt Su Yuqing shift slightly on the sofa, changing her posture. Her breathing seemed a little heavier than usual, but maybe it was just my imagination. "Are you hot?" I suddenly asked. "Do you want me to turn on the air conditioner?" Su Yuqing shook her head but fanned her face with her hand. "A little, but it's okay." I got up to adjust the air conditioner temperature, saying with my back to her, "I'll go grab you a thin blanket. It's easy to catch a cold if the AC is too low." When I returned from the bedroom with the blanket, I found Su Yuqing curled up in the corner of the sofa, her arms wrapped around her knees. When she took the blanket, our fingers touched for a second. She recoiled quickly as if burned. "Thank you," she whispered, covering her legs with the blanket but still maintaining the curled up position. I sat back on the armchair, trying hard to focus on the TV. But an undeniable fact was that the oyster effect was gradually manifesting in me. I felt my heart rate accelerate, my palms were slightly sweaty, and the more I tried not to think about it, the more stubbornly certain thoughts emerged. Su Yuqing suddenly stood up. "I'm going to wash my face." She hurried to the bathroom, and I heard the sound of running water. A few minutes later, she returned, her face still damp, a few strands of hair wet on her forehead. It looked like she had washed her face with cold water, but the flush on her cheeks hadn't completely subsided. "Feeling better?" I asked. She nodded but didn't return to the sofa, instead standing in the center of the living room, seemingly hesitant about something. "Chen Mo," she suddenly said, "I think we should talk." I lowered the TV volume. "Talk about what?" "About the current situation." Su Yuqing took a deep breath. "We both know what the oysters do, and we've both eaten a significant amount. Xiaoman isn't home, and the two of us." She paused. "We need to set some boundaries." I wholeheartedly agreed. "You're right. We're not children. We should be able to control ourselves." Su Yuqing showed her first genuine smile of the night. "Exactly. We're not animals driven by instinct." She walked back to the sofa and sat down, this time in a more relaxed posture, the blanket still covering her legs. "Let's play a game to distract ourselves," she suggested. "Do you have any board games?" I dug out a long and used chess set, and we spread the board on the coffee table. Su Yuqing's chess skills were surprisingly good. We quickly became immersed in the game, temporarily forgetting the strange feeling in our bodies. "Checkmate," Su Yuqing said triumphantly, capturing my last rook. I pretended to shake my head in annoyance. "I didn't realize you were so good." Just as we smiled at each other, Su Yuqing suddenly frowned, unconsciously pressing her fingers to her temple. "What's wrong?" I asked. "I feel a little dizzy," she said softly. "It might be the oysters, the effect is kicking in." It was 10:30, more than an hour after we ate the oysters, which was precisely when the effect was strongest. "Do you want to rest?" I suggested. "You can go to the guest room to sleep. If you fall asleep, you won't feel it." Su Yuqing nodded, but as she stood up, she suddenly stumbled. I subconsciously stepped forward and held her arm. The moment I touched her skin, an electric current-like sensation spread from my fingertips. Her arm was warm and soft, and I could feel the rapid beating of her pulse. Sorry. Su Yuqing quickly took a step back once she was steady. I'm fine. But as she retreated, she accidentally stepped on the box of the chess set next to the coffee table and lost her balance again. This time she fell forward completely, and I had to extend both arms to catch her. In an instant, she was a warm, soft armful. Su Yuqing crashed into my embrace, and my arms instinctively wrapped around her waist. Her body was softer than I imagined, and her hair carried a faint scent of shampoo. I could feel her heart pounding furiously, almost in sync with mine. We froze there, neither of us immediately letting go. A dangerous impulse surged within me. I could almost hear the sound of my rationality snapping. Su Yuqing looked up at me, her lips trembling slightly. Her eyes, which were an amber color I had never noticed before, were now glazed with moisture due to the oysters, making them particularly captivating. Just at this critical moment, the doorbell suddenly rang, cutting through the stagnant air in the kitchen. We sprang apart as if electrocuted. Su Yuqing frantically smoothed her clothes, while I rushed to the door, full of confusion. Who could it be so late? Through the peephole, I saw a delivery driver standing outside. Mr. Chen? Your delivery. I suddenly remembered the beef noodles I had ordered earlier. Opening the door and accepting the delivery, I felt like crying and laughing at the same time. At the most dangerous moment, this forgotten delivery had become our savior. You ordered takeout? Su Yuqing stood in the center of the living room, the flush still on her cheeks. Yeah, beef noodles. I held up the plastic bag. Want to share? It might be a little cold, though. Su Yuqing suddenly laughed, a bright smile that made my heart skip another beat. Sure, I'm hungry anyway. We sat at the dining table, sharing the bowl of beef noodles, and the atmosphere miraculously lightened. The oysters were still working, but that moment of nearly crossing the line seemed to have sobered us both up a little. Chen Mo, Su Yuqing said, biting the tip of her chopsticks. We almost made a mistake just now, didn't we? I nodded, the steam from the beef noodles blurring my vision. But we didn't in the end, that's what's important. She smiled, her eyes much clearer. Yes, at least it proves we still have self-control. When the clock struck 11:30, Su Yuqing yawned. I think I'll go to bed now. The effect of the oysters should be wearing off soon. Good night, I said. Call me if you need anything. She walked to the guest room, paused at the door, and looked back at me. Thank you for keeping your wits about you tonight. I smiled. The feeling is mutual. After the guest room door closed, I let out a long breath and collapsed onto the sofa. The night's events felt like an absurd dream, but the residual heat in my body reminded me that it was all real. I picked up my phone and saw another message from Lin Xiaoman. Hubby, did you eat the oysters? See you tomorrow. I stared at the message for a long time, eventually only replying with a simple Some things it was better to explain face to face. In the morning, Su Yuqing and I were sitting together. She opened a bottle of wine and invited me to drink. I remembered that I hadn't had a drink in 2 weeks because of the oysters. Just as I was getting dizzy from the wine, and Su Yuqing was about to lean over, the sound of a key turning in the lock was piercingly loud. Su Yuqing and I froze simultaneously, exchanging glances, seeing the same horror in each other's eyes. Lin Xiaoman was back. Didn't she say she was working overtime? Su Yuqing whispered, unconsciously twisting the corner of her shirt. Before I could answer, the door was pushed open. Lin Xiaoman stood in the doorway, still holding her laptop bag. The exhaustion on her face solidified the moment she saw the scene in the living room. Time seemed to stretch. I quickly scanned the current situation. Su Yuqing was wearing my shirt as pajamas, her hair was slightly messy, and her cheeks were flushed. And the most fatal detail was that Su Yuqing, in her nervousness, had instinctively grabbed my arm. Lin Xiaoman's expression went from shock to anger to icy cold in less than 3 seconds. Sorry to interrupt, she said calmly. This calmness was more terrifying than any shout. She turned to leave. Xiaoman. Wait. I rushed forward and grabbed her wrist. It's not what you think. Lin Xiaoman pulled her hand away, her eyes cold as ice. What do I think? I work until dawn and come home to see my husband and my best friend drinking together first thing in the morning, dressed like this. What is there left to explain? We really didn't do anything. I stammered, incoherent with urgency. We were just talking. Yuqing's clothes hadn't dried after washing, so she borrowed my shirt. 7 years, Lin Xiaoman cut me off, her voice trembling. We've been married for 7 years, Chen Mo. Her gaze moved from me to Su Yuqing, then back. I must have been blind. Su Yuqing walked over then, tears welling up in her eyes. Xiaoman, you're misunderstanding. We really were just talking as friends. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have stayed here. Shut up. Lin Xiaoman snapped. It was the first time I had ever seen her speak to Su Yuqing like that. Get out of my house now. Su Yuqing flinched as if slapped, tears streaming down her face. She turned and ran to the guest room, coming out a few minutes later dragging her suitcase, her eyes red and swollen. I'm sorry. She sobbed. I'm leaving now. I stood there, feeling a sense of absurdity. It all happened too fast, like a farce. I knew I should stop Su Yuqing, but my more pressing concern was saving my marriage. Let her go, Lin Xiaoman said coldly. We need to talk. Su Yuqing looked at me one last time, her expression too complex to read, and then she left, pulling her suitcase behind her. The moment the door closed, Lin Xiaoman's mask of composure shattered. She sank onto the sofa, burying her face in her hands. Xiaoman. I cautiously approached. I can explain. Explain what? She looked up, her face tear-streaked. Explain why my best friend is wearing your clothes? Or explain why I walked in and saw her grabbing your hand? I took a deep breath, deciding to start from the beginning. It all started with that damned oyster therapy. Over the next half hour, I laid out the entire experience of the past week. From Lin Xiaoman's misunderstanding of Su Yuqing's advice, to the pain of being forced to eat 100 oysters every night, to the embarrassing situation where Su Yuqing accidentally ate the oysters and we had to monitor each other. Last night, we were truly just playing chess and talking. I pointed to the chess set still on the coffee table. Later, we ordered takeout and had a little wine to relax. That was all. Lin Xiaoman's expression gradually shifted from anger to confusion. Are you saying this whole thing was because of oysters? Lin Xiaoman was silent for a long time, then finally sighed. I should believe you. 7 years, you've never lied to me. She rubbed her temples. But when I walked in and saw that. I understand, I took her hand. This time, she didn't pull away. If it were me, my reaction might have been even more extreme. We shared a look and a faint smile, and the atmosphere eased slightly. But I knew the issue wasn't completely resolved. What about Yuqing? I hesitated to bring it up. I'll go apologize to her tomorrow, Lin Xiaoman said. I was too impulsive just now. The next morning, I woke up to find Lin Xiaoman had already left. A message on my phone read, I'm going to apologize to Yuqing and help her move back. Her floor is still being repaired. Love you. I breathed a sigh of relief, though I still felt vaguely uneasy. What would Su Yuqing say about last night? Would she tell the truth or embellish it? Around noon, Lin Xiaoman returned with Su Yuqing. Su Yuqing's eyes were still a little swollen, but she had regained her usual elegance. She gave me an apologetic smile when she saw me. Chen Mo, I'm sorry for causing you trouble, she said softly, her voice conveying the right amount of guilt. No, I should be apologizing. I glanced at Lin Xiaoman. We should have been more mindful of boundaries last night. Lin Xiaoman put her arm around Su Yuqing's shoulder. It's all sorted out, it was all a misunderstanding. Yuqing has already forgiven my harsh words. Su Yuqing nodded, a sincere light flickering in her eyes. How could our friendship of so many years be broken over such a small thing? And so, Su Yuqing moved back into the guest room. On the surface, everything returned to normal. But something had quietly changed. Lin Xiaoman no longer forced me to eat oysters, and our life returned to its natural rhythm. Su Yuqing, meanwhile, became even more considerate. She would prepare dinner when Lin Xiaoman worked late, voluntarily clean the living room, and even help me iron my shirts. Whenever I thanked her, she would smile and say, It's the least I can do, I'm grateful you're taking me in. 1 week later, on a Friday night, Lin Xiaoman was working late again. Su Yuqing and I were watching TV in the living room, maintaining a safe distance. Chen Mo, Su Yuqing suddenly said, that night there was definitely something between us, right? My heart jumped, and I pretended to focus on the TV. It was just the effect of the oysters. Is that so? She said softly. I don't think so. Before I could answer, she added. But don't worry, I won't ruin your marriage. Xiaoman is my best friend. Her tone was both reassuring and confusing. Just then my phone rang. It was Lin Xiaoman. Hubby, project celebration party tonight. Might be very late, don't wait up for me. I replied, put down my phone, and noticed Su Yuqing had already gotten up and gone to the kitchen. A moment later, she returned with 2 cans of beer. Want a drink? I hesitated but took it. It was just a can of beer. What could be the harm? We chatted while we drank, the topics ranging from work to college memories. 2 cans of beer later, the atmosphere was much more relaxed. Su Yuqing spoke of her failed relationships, tears welling up in her eyes. Sometimes I really envy you and Xiaoman, she choked out. Still so in love after 7 years. I handed her a tissue, accidentally touching her fingers. This time, she didn't immediately pull back, but gently squeezed my hand. Thank you for controlling yourself that night. Not every man could do that. My throat suddenly went dry, and I quickly withdrew my hand. I'll go get something to eat. In the kitchen, I took a few deep breaths and splashed cold water on my face. As I opened the fridge to look for food, my eyes fell on a box of oysters in the corner. Lin Xiaoman had bought them last week, and they hadn't been touched. Impulsively, I took one out, shucked it, and swallowed it. The fresh, delicious taste exploded in my mouth. Only then did I realize what I had done. The alcohol had made me forget that Su Yuqing was still in the house, and it made me forget the power of the oysters. Did you find anything to eat? Su Yuqing's voice came from behind. I froze, slowly turning around. Su Yuqing was leaning against the kitchen door frame, her cheeks flushed from the alcohol, her lips slightly parted. Under the soft kitchen light, she was stunningly beautiful. Found a few oysters. My voice was a little hoarse. Su Yuqing's eyes lit up. Oysters? She walked closer to me. Can I have one? My rationality told me to refuse, but the alcohol and the just-eaten oyster had already begun to influence my judgment. I looked at her expectant eyes and, against my better judgment, nodded. Su Yuqing picked up an oyster, skillfully shucked it, and tipped it into her mouth. The juice ran down the corner of her mouth, sliding over her fair neck. She licked her lips contentedly. Truly fresh. We stood in the kitchen, our eyes locked. A dangerous current flowed in the air. I knew what was about to happen, and I knew I should stop it. But at that moment, under the dual effect of alcohol and oysters, my willpower was rapidly collapsing. Su Yuqing took a step forward, so close that I could smell her perfume. Her eyes looked directly into mine, holding an invitation I couldn't resist. Chen Mo. She whispered my name, her voice like poison wrapped in honey. Her fingers lightly touched my chest, the warmth of her fingertips penetrating through the thin t-shirt. The kitchen light cast an ambiguous shadow on her face. Her eyes, normally clear, were now misted over due to the effect of the oyster, and her lips were glistening wetly from just having eaten. My brain was screaming a sharp warning, but my body betrayed my reason. The oysters and alcohol rushed through my veins, converting every warning signal into a more frantic heartbeat and a hotter breath. We can't. My voice was so hoarse it didn't sound like my own. Su Yuqing took another step forward, leaving almost no distance between us. The faint scent of her perfume mixed with the oceanic aroma of the oyster, creating a bizarre temptation. Just as her lips were about to touch mine, the sharp ringing of a cell phone tore through the frozen air in the kitchen. We sprang apart as if we'd received an electric shock. It was my phone, the screen showing Lin Xiaoman's name and a picture of her. It was taken last year on our beach vacation, she was smiling so brightly. Su Yuqing stepped back, a flash of annoyance in her eyes, but it quickly returned to that vulnerable, pitiful expression. I took a deep breath, answered the call, and put it on speakerphone. Hubby. Lin Xiaoman's voice came from the speaker, accompanied by some background noise. Are you two okay at home? Yes, fine. I tried to make my voice sound normal. Are you finished there? Yeah, wrapped up early. I should be home in about 20 minutes, her tone was light. Is Yuqing asleep? My gaze swept over Su Yuqing. She was biting her lower lip, looking at me with a complicated expression. Not yet, we're in the kitchen, looking for a snack. I chose to tell a partial truth. Oh well, perfect. Help me ask her what late-night snack she wants, I'll bring it on the way. Su Yuqing suddenly spoke, her voice sweetly unnatural. No need, Xiaoman, we just ate a little something and are about to rest. The phone line was briefly silent. Oh, all right. Lin Xiaoman's voice had a subtle shift. See you soon then. The call ended, and the kitchen fell silent again. That phone call felt like a bucket of ice water dumped over my head, bringing me back to complete sobriety. I stepped back until my back was against the refrigerator door. Yuqing, this isn't right. I rubbed my temples. We can't keep. Su Yuqing's expression changed from anticipation to annoyance, then quickly to hurt. Are you rejecting me? I'm not rejecting you. I struggled to organize my words. I'm respecting our marriage, and I'm respecting your friendship with Xiaoman. She scoffed. What a model husband. The sarcasm in her tone stunned me. This wasn't the Su Yuqing I knew. The image of the kind, understanding, gentle best friend was collapsing, revealing a much more complex face underneath. I thought we had a special connection, she continued, her voice low. That night, you clearly felt it too. I shook my head. That was the effect of the oysters and the alcohol, not reality. Are you sure? She suddenly stepped forward, a dangerous spark in her eyes. Or are you afraid to admit it? Just then, her foot seemed to catch on something, and her whole body tilted forward. I instinctively reached out to steady her, and her body crashed heavily into my embrace. We were tangled in an extremely suggestive posture. Her arms around my neck, my hands on her waist, her face inches away, her breath hot on my face. Let go of me. She suddenly struggled, but her voice was 8 decibels louder. I released her in confusion, only to see her stumble back a few steps and intentionally knock over the dishes on the counter, creating a huge clatter. Her eyes instantly reddened, tears springing forth immediately. Yuking? What are you? Before I could finish, the sound of a key turning in the front door lock was heard. Time seemed to freeze. I stood there in the position of having just held her, turning my head to look at the doorway. Lin Xiaoman stood there, still holding a bag of late-night snacks. Her expression quickly turned from surprise to icy coldness. Su Yuqing instantly jumped away from me, frantically adjusting her clothes. Xiaoman! It's not what you think. I just almost fell. Lin Xiaoman's gaze darted back and forth between us, finally settling on me. I truly underestimated you, Chen Mo. Xiaoman, listen to me. I took a step toward her, but she backed away, raising a hand to stop me from approaching. No need to explain, her voice was unnervingly calm. This calmness was more terrifying than any scream. I came back to grab a few things. I'm leaving right away. Xiaoman. Su Yuqing ran towards her, crying. It's all my fault, I shouldn't have. Shut up, Lin Xiaoman interrupted her coldly. You two are truly a perfect match. She turned and went into the bedroom, emerging a few minutes later dragging a small suitcase. I blocked her path. Please listen to my explanation. She almost fell, I just caught her. And then what? Lin Xiaoman sneered. Last time it was just talking. This time it's just catching her. What's next? Just accidentally sleeping together? I was speechless. From her perspective, this was indeed too suspicious. Late night, kitchen, messy clothes, Su Yuqing's tears. Move aside, Chen Mo. Lin Xiaoman's voice was weary and resolute. I need time to think. I weakly stepped out of the way. She walked towards the door without looking back, pausing at the threshold. Oh, and I wish you both happiness. The sound of the door closing was like a heavy hammer blow to my heart. I stood rooted, unable to believe that my 7-year marriage had returned to the brink of collapse in a matter of minutes. Chen Mo. Su Yuqing called my name timidly. I turned to look at her, suddenly noticing a fleeting smile at the corner of her mouth. In that instant, a terrible thought struck me. She did it on purpose. You. I narrowed my eyes. Did you fall on purpose just now? Su Yuqing's expression instantly became wounded. How could you think that? I genuinely tripped. I walked toward the counter, checking the spot where she had tripped. There was nothing there. The floor was clean and smooth. There's nothing here to trip you, I said coldly. She bit her lip, and tears welled up again. I might have been too nervous, my legs felt weak. I no longer believed her tears. I walked to the sofa and sat down, my head throbbing. The effects of the alcohol and the oyster were fading, leaving behind only endless regret and confusion. Why? I looked up at her. Why did you do this? Su Yuqing was silent for a moment, then lifted her head, the tears in her eyes miraculously gone. Her expression became calm, even a little cold. Because I like you, she said placidly. I've liked you since college. Longer than Xiaoman. I stared at her in shock. But you never. Because I was scared, she gave a bitter smile. I've been waiting for you to notice me, but you chose Xiaoman. I had to pretend to be her best friend, just so I could see you often. The confession sent a chill down my spine. 7 years, she'd been pretending for 7 whole years? So, all of this, the oyster advice, the staying here tonight's, it was all planned? Su Yuqing didn't answer directly. Instead, she walked over and squatted in front of me, looking up. Now she's gone. We can be together openly. I jumped to my feet, avoiding her touch. Are you crazy? I love my wife. But she doesn't trust you. Su Yuqing's voice became sharp. Twice now, she's seen us in an intimate situation. Do you think she'll ever believe you again? I clenched my fists, struggling to control my anger. Get out. What? I said, get out of my house. I pointed to the door. Now. Immediately. Su Yuqing's face turned pale. She stood up, the hurt in her eyes looking so genuine, but I wouldn't fall for it again. You'll regret this, she whispered, turning to walk towards the guest room. A few minutes later, she emerged with her suitcase, the pitiful expression back on her face. Chen Mo, I'm sorry, I really am. Save it, I sneered. The act is over. She looked at me one last time, an unreadable complexity in her gaze, and then she left. The moment the door closed, I collapsed onto the sofa, my head pounding. There were a few messages from Lin Xiaoman on my phone. I need space. Don't look for me. My lawyer will contact you. 7 years of marriage, destroyed just like that? I couldn't accept it. I stood up and started cleaning the chaos in the kitchen, trying to clear my head through mechanical action. While tidying the counter, I found a small black object. It was a voice recorder, blinking with a faint red light. I picked it up and pressed the play button. Su Yuqing's voice came out clearly. Just this once, no one will ever know. My blood ran cold. These were the words she had just said to me in the kitchen. She recorded it? Why? I flipped the recorder over. A sticky note was attached to the back, which read, "Just in case. Love, Yuqing." I felt chills all over. This wasn't an impulsive confession. It was a carefully orchestrated conspiracy. Su Yuqing had planned everything from the start, even preparing evidence. I immediately called Lin Xiaoman, but only heard the cold prompt. "The number you dialed is temporarily unreachable." The content of the voice recorder played in my mind all night. In the early morning, with dark circles under my eyes, I sat at the computer, backed up the recording file 3 times, and then dialed the number of Lin Xiaoman's most trusted older cousin. "Sisterly, it's me, Chen Mo. I need your help with something." 2 hours later, I stood downstairs at the apartment building where Lin Xiaoman was temporarily staying, a file folder in my hand. Sisterly stood beside me and patted my shoulder. "She agreed to see you, but she's still very emotional. Talk to her gently." I nodded and took the elevator up. Lin Xiaoman opened the door. She looked haggard, her eyes red and swollen. Clearly, she hadn't slept well either. "I'll give you 5 minutes," she said coldly, stepping aside to let me in. I walked into the apartment and placed the file folder on the coffee table. "First of all, I love you and I have never betrayed you." Lin Xiaoman turned her face away from me. I opened the file folder, took out the voice recorder and printed chat logs. Sisterly had helped me get these from Su Yuqing's ex-boyfriend, proving she had a similar track record. "Listen to this." I pressed the play button. Su Yuqing's voice was exceptionally clear in the quiet apartment. "Just this once, no one will ever know." Lin Xiaoman suddenly looked up, a flash of shock in her eyes. She said this when she was seducing me last night. She recorded it herself. I gave a bitter smile. Apparently, it was to keep as evidence. I then showed her the chat logs, which clearly showed Su Yuqing had used similar methods to break up 2 other couples. 7 years, I said softly. "You know me, I'm not that kind of person." Lin Xiaoman's fingers trembled as she looked through the logs, the ice in her eyes gradually melting. When she saw Su Yuqing's detailed guide on how to create a misunderstanding sent to her ex-boyfriend, she finally broke down in tears. "I'm such a fool." She covered her face. "I actually believed her and didn't believe you." I cautiously put my arm around her shoulder. This time, she didn't push me away. No, she was too cunning. Who would ever suspect their best friend would? Lin Xiaoman sobbed in my arms for a while, then suddenly looked up. "Wait, why did she record herself? Wouldn't that be incriminating for her?" "Insurance," I explained. "If the plan succeeded, this would be her leverage to control me. If it failed like now, she could pretend it was evidence left unintentionally, proving that I was the one who seduced her." Lin Xiaoman gasped. "That's terrifying." Just as we were talking, Sisterly suddenly called, "Chen Mo!" Something happened. Su Yuqing was hit by an electric bike outside your community gate. She's being sent to the hospital. Lin Xiaoman and I looked at each other and stood up simultaneously. Regardless of what had happened, this was a human life. At the hospital, Su Yuqing lay on the bed with a cast on her left leg, her face pale. Seeing us enter, she instinctively shrank back into the covers. "The doctor said it's a minor fracture. She needs 2 weeks of bed rest." The nurse finished her instructions and left, leaving the 3 of us in awkward silence. I am so sorry." Su Yuqing spoke first, her voice as thin as a mosquito. "I deserve this." Lin Xiaoman sighed, walked forward and said, "Don't say that. Just focus on healing your injury first." And so, because the doctor suggested recovering at home, Su Yuqing returned to our house. This time, as a patient. Lin Xiaoman and I tacitly took turns caring for her. Neither of us mentioned the drama again, but a subtle awkwardness always hung in the air. 1 week later, on an evening when Lin Xiaoman was working late, I was responsible for bringing Su Yuqing her dinner. Pushing open the guest room door, I found her attempting to change her own dressing. Her clumsy efforts were a world away from her usual elegance. "I'll do it." I took the gauze and ointment. Su Yuqing didn't refuse and quietly allowed me to tend to her wounds. As I carefully wiped the bruises on her lower leg, she suddenly whispered, "I truly like you, I just used the wrong method." I didn't look up, continuing my task. "Liking someone shouldn't be based on hurting others." "I know." Her voice was choked with emotion. "Seeing that you and Xiaoman are still willing to take care of me, I feel even more ashamed." After treating the wound, I stood up to leave, but Su Yuqing grabbed the corner of my clothes. "Chen Mo, once I'm better, I'll move out, and I will formally apologize to Xiaoman." I nodded, not saying anything more. When Lin Xiaoman returned, I relayed Su Yuqing's words to her. She was silent for a moment, then suddenly said, "Actually, she's always been very lonely." I looked at my wife in surprise, not expecting her to defend Su Yuqing. "I'm not excusing her behavior," Lin Xiaoman explained. "I just suddenly understood why she did what she did." That night, we lay in bed. Lin Xiaoman rested in my arms. "Did you know? Her parents divorced in college, and neither wanted her. She supported herself through scholarships and part-time jobs." I held her tightly, suddenly feeling a surge of pity for Su Yuqing. Time passed quickly, and Su Yuqing's leg injury gradually healed. Unexpectedly, this period of cohabitation caused a subtle change in the relationship between the three of us. Su Yuqing stopped pretending, showing her true self. A little clumsy, a little sensitive, but more endearing. Lin Xiaoman demonstrated a tolerance and maturity I had never seen before. And I, in turn, learned to communicate and understand better. The day Su Yuqing's cast was removed, she personally cooked a sumptuous dinner. When she placed a platter of oysters in the center of the table, Lin Xiaoman and I were both stunned. "Don't worry," Su Yuqing smiled. "Just a few to set the mood. I think we should officially turn the page." Lin Xiaoman looked at me, then suddenly reached out and took an oyster. "All right, but this time the three of us will eat it together." Su Yuqing and I watched in surprise as Lin Xiaoman elegantly sent the oyster into her mouth. She winked. "What's wrong? Good things should be shared, right?" The atmosphere at the dining table suddenly relaxed. We talked about all the events of the past month, our laughter constant. The delicious flavor of the oyster melted in my mouth, but this time there were no hidden calculations or desires, only three adults who had weathered a storm and finally found a comfortable distance from one another. After dinner, Su Yuqing insisted on washing the dishes. Lin Xiaoman and I sat on the balcony watching the night view. "She's moving back next week," Lin Xiaoman said, a hint of an emotion I couldn't read in her tone. I nodded. "Will you miss her?" Lin Xiaoman didn't answer immediately. Instead, she leaned on my shoulder. "I'm thinking that relationships between people are sometimes much more complicated than we imagine." I turned my head to look at her and found a gentle light flickering in her eyes. "Are you saying—" "I'm not saying anything," she gently kissed my cheek. "I just feel that things are quite good the way they are now." Su Yuqing hummed a tune in the kitchen, the sounds of running water and clanging dishes drifting out. The living room light was warm and soft, and on the balcony my wife and I embraced and smiled. The oyster shells were neatly stacked in the center of the dining table, like a small work of art. Perhaps some relationships don't need a clear definition, and some forms of happiness don't require worldly understanding. Three people, one dinner, one unspoken smile, that was enough.